Before we begin the story, let us know where you're watching from by leaving a comment below. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the story, everyone. Manhattan, the Plaza Hotel, Grand Ballroom. Ava adjusted her black cocktail dress for the 10th time in 5 minutes. The expensive fabric, bought with 3 credit card payments she couldn't really afford, clung to her nervous, sweaty skin as she watched New York's elite circle the ballroom like perfectly groomed sharks. Relax, Ava. You belong here as much as any of these trust fund babies. Emma, her best friend and only ally in this sea of corporate networking, nudged her arm. Remember, you're the new creative director at Summit Marketing. Confidence is everything. Ava took a deep breath. 3 months ago, she was unemployed, eating instant noodles and crying over reality television reruns. Now, thanks to her brilliant portfolio and a stroke of luck, she was running one of the most important divisions at the marketing agency that had just landed 3 Fortune 500 accounts. Ava, isn't that Victoria Langston? Emma discreetly pointed toward a perfectly polished blonde woman in her 40s, approaching them with a smile that didn't reach her icy blue eyes. Darn it. Victoria, former creative director at Summit, fired when Ava was hired, known for her razor-sharp tongue and a network that included everyone from fashion magazine editors to tech billionaires. Ava, Victoria approached like a heat-seeking missile. What a surprise seeing you here. I must say, you're different from what I expected. The tone was sweet, but the venom was unmistakable. Ava's stomach churned. Victoria, how lovely to see you. Ava forced a bright smile. How are you doing? Fantastic. You know, I'm curious. Victoria tilted her head like a cat about to play with a mouse. Such a young woman taking on such an important position. Tell me, what's your secret? Because frankly, when I heard you were only 26 with 0 experience at major agencies, the words hung in the air like toxic smoke. Ava felt every conversation around them stop. Curious eyes turned their way. Ava's throat went dry. Let me guess, Victoria continued, raising her voice just enough to draw more attention. Daddy knows someone. Or perhaps you have other qualities that impress the partners. Ava's blood boiled. 3 years of graduate school, 5 years building her portfolio, countless sleepless nights creating campaigns that saved companies from bankruptcy. All of it being reduced to disgusting insinuations. Actually, Ava heard her own voice, strangely steady. My husband always says my talent speaks for itself. Husband? Ava froze. Why on earth had she said that? Oh, how interesting. Victoria's eyes gleamed like a predator scenting blood. And who would this lucky husband be? Anyone we know? The ballroom seemed to shrink around them. Ava felt sweat trickling down her spine. Her mind was completely blank. Ava looked desperately around the room, searching for an escape, when her eyes landed on an imposing figure across the ballroom. Liam Caldwell, CEO of Caldwell Enterprises, heir to one of America's largest fortunes, known for being a ruthless workaholic who turned everything he touched to gold, the most coveted and untouchable man in New York City, and he was looking directly at her. He's right there. Ava pointed toward Liam, her voice coming out stronger than she felt. Liam Caldwell, my husband. The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria followed Ava's gaze and went pale. Several people around them turned to look between Ava and the most powerful man in the room, and that was exactly when Liam Caldwell began walking toward them, a slow, dangerous smile spreading across his lips. I'm done for, Ava thought, completely, utterly done for. But when Liam stopped beside her, his arm slipped around her waist possessively, and he whispered in her ear with a voice that sent shivers down her entire spine. Hello, sweetheart. Did you miss me? The warmth of Liam's hand on Ava's waist felt like fire through the thin fabric of her dress. She could smell his cologne, something expensive and intoxicating that made her head spin, and feel the solid strength of his body pressed against her side. Sorry I'm late, darling, Liam continued, his deep voice carrying just the right amount of warmth for a loving husband. His thumb traced a small circle on her hip that made her knees weak. The board meeting ran over. Ava's brain had apparently stopped functioning. This was Liam Caldwell. The Liam Caldwell, the man whose face graced Forbes covers, who owned half of Manhattan's skyline, who could probably buy her entire apartment building without checking his bank balance, and he was playing along with her ridiculous lie. It's fine, she managed to stammer, acutely aware of how her voice trembled compared to his confident baritone. Victoria. Liam's voice turned arctic as he acknowledged the older woman, still spreading sunshine wherever you go." "I see." Victoria looked like she'd been struck by lightning. "Liam, I had no idea you were. I mean, when did you get married?" Liam's smile was razor sharp. "Ava and I prefer to keep our private life private, don't we, sweetheart?" He looked down at Ava with such convincing affection that for a moment she almost believed it herself. Those piercing gray eyes held secrets she couldn't read, but there was something in them. Amusement, maybe, that made her pulse race. "Yes." Ava found her voice, surprising herself with how steady it sounded. "We're very private people." "How romantic," Victoria managed, her face cycling through several shades of red. "I suppose congratulations are in order." "Thank you," Liam replied smoothly. "Now, if you'll excuse us, I promised my wife a dance." Before Ava could process what was happening, Liam was guiding her toward the dance floor, his hand firmly planted on the small of her back. She could feel Victoria's shocked stare burning into them, along with the curious gazes of half the ballroom. "What are you doing?" Ava hissed under her breath as they reached the edge of the dance floor. "Saving you from social suicide," Liam murmured back, turning to face her and pulling her into his arms. "Did you seriously just claim to be married to me without having an exit strategy?" The orchestra was playing something slow and romantic. Liam moved with the fluid grace of someone who'd been forced into cotillion classes as a child, leading her effortlessly across the polished marble floor. "I panicked," Ava whispered, trying not to notice how perfectly she fit against him. "She was being awful, and it slipped out. It slipped out." Liam's eyebrows rose in disbelief. "You accidentally claimed to be married to a complete stranger." "Not a complete stranger," Ava protested. "I've seen you on magazine covers." Liam threw back his head and laughed. A rich, genuine sound that made something flutter in Ava's chest. "Well, that makes it so much better. Look, I'm sorry I dragged you into this," Ava said, suddenly feeling mortified. "You can just, I don't know, dump me publicly tomorrow or something, blame irreconcilable differences, and let Victoria tear you apart in the society pages." Liam spun her gracefully, pulling her back against him. "I don't think so." Ava looked up at him in confusion. "Why would you care what happens to me?" For a moment, something flickered across Liam's face, too quick for her to identify. Then his trademark arrogant smile was back. "Let's just say I have my reasons," he said cryptically. "Besides, Victoria has been gunning for my family's business for years. Watching her squirm was worth the price of admission. So, what happens now?" Ava asked, trying to ignore the way his fingers felt intertwined with hers. "Now," Liam's smile turned wicked. "Now we give them a show they'll never forget." Before Ava could ask what he meant, Liam dipped her dramatically, his face inches from hers. The ballroom erupted in appreciative murmurs and a few scattered applauses. "Smile, Mrs. Caldwell," Liam whispered against her ear as he pulled her back up. "Your adoring husband is about to make you the most envied woman in New York." And as the music swelled around them, Ava realized she was in far deeper trouble than she'd ever imagined. Ava's phone buzzed like an angry hornet at 6:47 a.m., dragging her from dreams filled with gray eyes and dangerous smiles. She fumbled for the device, squinting at the screen through sleep-heavy eyelids. 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, and counting. "What the?" she mumbled, sitting up in her tiny studio apartment. The events of last night came flooding back like a tsunami of mortification. The gala, Victoria, Liam Caldwell. "Oh no, oh no, no, no." Her phone rang again. Emma's name flashed on the screen. "Please tell me I'm having a nightmare." Ava groaned into the phone. "Honey, if this is a nightmare, then we're both stuck in it." Emma's voice was breathless with excitement. "Have you seen the photos?" "What photos?" "Ava. You're all over page 6 in Society Spotlight and Manhattan Elite. The headline on page 6 reads, 'Mystery Wife. Billionaire bachelor Liam Caldwell's secret marriage revealed.' There's a gorgeous shot of him dipping you on the dance floor that looks like something out of a romance novel." Ava's stomach dropped to her toes. She fumbled for her laptop, typing frantically, as Emma continued babbling in the background. The photo credit says, "Manhattan's most eligible bachelor taken. Liam Caldwell and his stunning wife share an intimate moment at last night's Children's Hospital charity gala." Emma read breathlessly. "Ava, you look absolutely gorgeous. And the way he's looking at you, holy moly. That man is smitten." The laptop screen loaded, and Ava's worst fears were confirmed. There she was, dramatic dip and all. looking for all the world like she was madly in love with Liam Caldwell. And he, goodness, the way the camera had caught his expression made her heart skip beats. She couldn't afford to skip. "Emma, I'm dead," Ava whispered. "My career is over. When people find out this is fake, when people find out what's fake," Emma interrupted, "because right now, all anyone knows is that Liam Caldwell has been secretly married to a gorgeous, successful creative director. Do you know how many women in this city would kill to be in your position right now?" Ava's other line beeped. "Unknown number. Emma, I have to go. Someone else is calling." Ava Harper. The voice was crisp, professional, unfamiliar. "Yes, this is Rachel Carter from Caldwell Enterprises. Mr. Caldwell would like to meet with you this morning. Are you available at 10? Ava checked her clock. 7:15 a.m. Yes, I suppose so. Excellent. The car will pick you up at 9:30. Please dress professionally. And Miss Harper, Mr. Caldwell suggests you avoid speaking to any reporters until after your meeting." The line went dead. Reporters. As if summoned by the thought, Ava's doorbell rang. Then again and again, she crept to the window and peeked through the blinds. 3 vans with television station logos were parked outside her building. A cluster of people with cameras and microphones stood on the sidewalk looking up at her windows. "This cannot be happening," she whispered. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Saw the news. Congratulations on landing the biggest fish in NYC. Too bad it won't last when everyone finds out who you really are. Victoria." Of course, Ava sank onto her tiny couch, head in her hands. What had started as a moment of panic-induced stupidity had somehow snowballed into a full-blown media circus. She was trapped in her own apartment, about to meet with a man who could destroy her career with a single phone call, and apparently had enemies plotting her downfall. Another text, this one from a number she didn't recognize. "Don't panic. Everything will be fine. Trust me. L." Despite everything, Ava felt a small smile tug at her lips. Even in text form, Liam Caldwell managed to sound arrogantly confident. Her phone rang again. This time it was her boss, Michael Lee, from Summit Marketing. "Ava, I've been trying to reach you for an hour. Have you seen the news?" "Yes, Michael. This is incredible. Do you know what kind of publicity this brings to the agency? We're getting calls from Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, Town and Country. Everyone wants to know about the woman who captured Liam Caldwell's heart. I'm moving the Peterson account presentation up. We need to strike while the iron is hot." Ava's head spun. "Michael, I need to tell you something later. Right now, I need you to embrace this moment. You're not just our creative director anymore, Ava. You're our secret weapon. The woman who married the most eligible bachelor in America." The line went dead, leaving Ava staring at her phone in disbelief. 2 hours later, she sat in the back of a sleek black town car, watching Manhattan blur past the tinted windows. She'd managed to sneak out the back of her building, evading the reporters, dressed in her best business suit, and armed with nothing but false confidence and a rapidly growing sense of impending doom. The car pulled up to Caldwell Enterprises' gleaming headquarters, a glass and steel monument to corporate power that stretched toward the clouds like a modern-day Tower of Babel. As she walked through the marble lobby, Ava caught sight of her reflection in the polished elevator doors. She looked pale but determined. Every inch the successful businesswoman she'd fought so hard to become, the elevator whisked her up 47 floors to the executive level, where Rachel Carter, a sharp-featured woman in her 50s, was waiting with a practiced smile. "Miss Harper, right this way." The walk to Liam's office felt like a march to the gallows. Rachel's heels clicked against the marble floor in a steady rhythm that matched Ava's racing heartbeat. They stopped before massive oak doors. Rachel knocked twice and opened them without waiting for a response. "Mr. Caldwell, Miss Harper is here." Ava stepped into the office and felt her breath catch. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a spectacular view of Central Park, while the office itself was a study in understated power. Rich leather, polished wood, and subtle lighting that made everything look like a scene from a corporate thriller. And there, behind a desk that probably cost more than her annual rent, sat Liam Caldwell. He looked up from whatever he was reading, and those piercing gray eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that made her knees wobble. "Hello, wife," he said with a smile that was equal parts charming and dangerous. "We need to talk." Ava stood frozen in the doorway of Liam's office, acutely aware that Rachel Carter had quietly disappeared, leaving them alone in what felt like a lion's den. The silence stretched between them like a taut wire, and she found herself cataloging details to avoid meeting those penetrating gray eyes. The crystal paperweight on his desk that probably cost more than her monthly salary, the subtle scent of sandalwood and bergamot that filled the air. The way morning sunlight caught the sharp angles of his face. "Please sit," Liam said finally, gesturing to one of the leather chairs across from his desk. His voice was calm, controlled. The voice of a man who held all the cards and knew it. Ava forced herself to move, her heels sinking slightly into the plush Persian rug. As she settled into the chair, she couldn't help but notice how the leather seemed to embrace her like a very expensive hug. Everything in this office whispered of power and wealth, from the original Picasso sketch on the wall to the way the desk was positioned to put visitors at a psychological disadvantage. "Coffee? Water?" Liam asked, pressing a button on his desk phone. "Coffee would be great," Ava replied, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. "Black, please. Rachel, 2 coffees, black for Miss Harper, the usual for me." He released the button and leaned back in his chair, studying her with an intensity that made her want to squirm. "You clean up well. Different look than last night." Ava glanced down at her navy blue suit, her interview suit. Actually, the one she'd worn when she landed the job at Summit Marketing. "Well, I didn't exactly plan on becoming Manhattan's most talked-about fake wife when I got dressed yesterday." Liam's lips quirked upward. "Fake wife. I like that. Direct, honest, refreshing qualities in my line of work." Rachel appeared with a silver tray bearing 2 cups of coffee that smelled heavenly. Ava accepted hers gratefully, using the moment to compose herself. The coffee was perfect, rich, smooth, probably imported from some exclusive plantation she'd never heard of. "So," Ava said, setting her cup down carefully on the side table, "I assume you called me here to discuss damage control. How exactly do we untangle this mess without destroying both our reputations?" Liam was quiet for a long moment. His fingers steepled as he regarded her. "What if I told you I don't want to untangle it?" Ava blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "You heard me." Liam stood and walked to the windows, his hands clasped behind his back as he gazed out at Central Park. "What if I told you that this little charade of yours might be exactly what I need right now?" "I'd say you've lost your mind," Ava replied honestly. "This is insane." "Liam, we're strangers. We can't just pretend to be married because it's convenient." He turned back to her, and there was something in his expression she couldn't quite read. "Can't we? People do it all the time in business. Mergers, partnerships, strategic alliances. This is just a different kind of contract." Ava set down her coffee cup with a sharp clink. "A contract? You want to make our fake marriage into some kind of business arrangement? Why not?" Liam moved back to his desk, but instead of sitting behind it, he perched on the edge closer to her. "Think about it, Ava. You're getting incredible publicity for your career. I saw the news this morning. Your agency is already capitalizing on this. You'll probably make partner within the year, and what do you get out of it?" Ava asked suspiciously. Liam's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "My board of directors has been pressuring me to settle down. They think a married CEO looks more stable, more trustworthy to investors. My grandfather left a clause in his will that gives the board additional leverage if I'm not married by my 35th birthday." "When's your birthday?" 3 months from now." Ava stared at him. "So, you're telling me that the great Liam Caldwell, master of the universe, is being bullied by his own board of directors?" "I'm telling you that sometimes even masters of the universe need strategic partnerships," he replied coolly. "This could work for both of us. Ava, you get the career boost of a lifetime, and I get the board off my back. For how long?" Ava found herself asking, even though part of her brain was screaming that this was the most ridiculous conversation she'd ever had. 6 months. Maybe a year. Long enough for your career to solidify and for me to prove to the board that I'm not going anywhere. Liam leaned forward, his voice dropping to that low, persuasive tone that probably closed million-dollar deals. "I'm not talking about a real marriage, obviously. Separate apartments, separate lives. We just need to make a few public appearances together. Some charity galas, maybe a weekend in the Hamptons. Nothing too demanding." Ava stood abruptly, pacing to the windows. Central Park stretched out below them, peaceful and green, a stark contrast to the chaos swirling in her mind. "This is crazy. What about dating? What about—" "I don't know. Falling in love with someone real. Are you in love with someone?" Liam asked. "No, but neither am I. And frankly, I don't have time for romance. This arrangement would actually make my life simpler." Ava turned to face him. "What about Victoria? She's going to be watching our every move." waiting for us to slip up. Liam's smile turned predatory. Let her watch. Victoria's been trying to damage my family's reputation for years. Her ex-husband lost a lot of money in a deal with Caldwell Enterprises 5 years ago, and she's been holding a grudge ever since. If anything, having to watch us be happily married will drive her crazy. You're enjoying this, Ava accused. Guilty as charged. Liam stood and moved closer to her, close enough that she could see the flecks of silver in his gray eyes. But I'm also serious about the offer. This could be mutually beneficial, Ava. Very beneficial. Define very beneficial. Liam named a figure that made Ava's knees go weak. Monthly allowance to help with your new lifestyle. Plus access to my personal stylist, makeup artist, and trainer. You'll need to look the part of Mrs. Caldwell. You want to pay me to be your fake wife? I want to compensate you for your time and effort in maintaining this arrangement. Liam corrected smoothly. Consider it a consulting fee. Ava's mind raced. The money he was offering would pay off her student loans, her credit cards, and still leave enough for her to build a real savings account for the first time in her adult life. She could move out of her shoebox apartment, maybe even buy decent furniture. But the rational part of her brain was waving red flags. What about the emotional complications? What happens if one of us develops feelings? Something flickered across Liam's face. That won't be a problem. How can you be so sure? Because I don't do feelings, Ava. I do business. And this is business. He moved back to his desk and pulled out a folder. I've had my lawyers draft a preliminary agreement. Take a look. Ava accepted the folder with trembling hands. The contract was surprisingly detailed, covering everything from public appearance requirements to social media guidelines to a termination clause that could be triggered by either party with 30 days' notice. There's a confidentiality agreement included, Liam explained. Neither of us can discuss the true nature of our arrangement with anyone, ever. What about Emma, my best friend? Especially not your best friend. The fewer people who know, the better. Liam's expression softened slightly. I know this is a lot to process. Take the weekend to think about it. Ava looked up from the contract. And if I say no, then we have a very public, very messy divorce, and we both deal with the fallout. Liam shrugged. Your choice. Ava closed the folder and stood. I need time to think. Of course. Liam pressed the button on his phone. Rachel, please arrange for Ava to be taken home. Use the service entrance to avoid the reporters. As if summoned by magic, Rachel appeared in the doorway. Miss Harper, if you're ready. Ava started toward the door, then stopped and turned back. Liam. Yes? Why me? You could have any woman in New York. Why go along with my ridiculous lie? For a moment, Liam's carefully controlled mask slipped, and she saw something raw and honest in his expression, maybe because it didn't feel like a lie when I was holding you last night. The words hung in the air between them, loaded with possibilities and complications that made Ava's heart race. Think about it, Ava, Liam said quietly. We could both get what we want, no strings attached. But as Rachel led her from the office and toward the elevator, Ava couldn't shake the feeling that Liam Caldwell was exactly the kind of man who came with strings attached, whether he meant to or not, and the most terrifying part was that she was actually considering saying yes. Ava spent the entire weekend pacing her tiny studio apartment like a caged tiger, the Caldwell Enterprises contract folder sitting on her coffee table like an unexploded bomb. She'd read through the agreement so many times she could probably recite it from memory, each clause more surreal than the last. Section 4. 2. The parties agree to maintain physical contact appropriate for a married couple during public appearances, including but not limited to hand-holding, brief kisses, and casual touching. Section 7. 1. Social media posts must reflect a loving, committed relationship. All posts featuring the other party must be approved in advance. Section 12. 3. In the event that romantic feelings develop between the parties, the affected party must disclose such feelings immediately to avoid breach of contract. That last clause made her stomach twist every time she read it. What kind of person thought to include a no falling in love clause in a fake marriage contract? And more importantly, what kind of person was considering signing it? Her phone had been buzzing non-stop since Friday morning. Reporters, journalists, bloggers, everyone wanted the story of how she'd captured the heart of America's most eligible bachelor. She'd stopped answering calls from unknown numbers, but that didn't stop them from leaving voicemails. Ava, this is Emily Wong from Vogue. We'd love to feature you in our upcoming Power Couples issue. Miss Harper, This is Thomas Bennett from the New York Times Style section. We're doing a piece on New York's new power wives. Ava, this is Lauren from the Real Housewives of Manhattan. We'd love to have you as a guest on the show. It was overwhelming and exhilarating and terrifying all at once. She'd gone from complete anonymity to being the most talked about woman in New York in less than 72 hours. Sunday evening, as she sat in her pajamas, eating takeout Chinese food straight from the container, her doorbell rang. Ava froze, chopsticks halfway to her mouth. The reporters had finally given up their vigil yesterday, but she wasn't taking any chances. She crept to the peephole and nearly choked on her lo mein. Liam Caldwell stood in her hallway, looking ridiculously out of place in his expensive charcoal suit and Italian leather shoes. He was holding what appeared to be a bottle of wine, and had somehow managed to look both casual and intimidating at the same time. Ava glanced down at her ratty NYU sweatshirt and polka-dot pajama pants. Of course, he would show up when she looked like a college student during finals week. She opened the door a crack, leaving the chain lock engaged. "What are you doing here?" "Good evening to you, too, wife," Liam said with that infuriating smirk. "I brought wine and answers to questions you probably have about the contract. How did you get past the building security?" "I'm very persuasive. Are you going to let me in? Or should we have this conversation in the hallway where Mrs. Patel from 4B can listen in?" Ava glanced toward Mrs. Patel's door and saw the woman's eye pressed to her own peephole. "Great." She reluctantly unhooked the chain and opened the door wider. "You couldn't have called first? You haven't been answering your phone," Liam pointed out, stepping into her apartment. "I assumed you were avoiding me." "I was avoiding everyone," Ava muttered, closing the door behind him and watching in horror as he surveyed her tiny living space. The studio apartment that had seemed cozy and efficient when she'd rented it now felt like a shoebox in the presence of a man who probably had walk-in closets bigger than her entire home. Liam's gaze moved from her unmade futon to the stack of dirty dishes in her sink to the pile of laundry she'd been meaning to fold for 3 days. If he was judging her living situation, he was polite enough not to show it. "Nice place," he said diplomatically. "Very minimalist." "It's a dump," Ava said bluntly, "but it's my dump, and the rent is reasonable." She gestured toward the small round table that served as both dining room and office. "You can sit there, I guess. Fair warning, the chair wobbles." Liam set the wine bottle on the table and tested the chair cautiously before sitting down. Ava remained standing, arms crossed, trying to project more confidence than she felt while wearing cartoon pandas on her feet. "So," she said, "you brought wine and answers. Let's start with the answers." "Fair enough." Liam loosened his tie slightly, the first crack in his perfectly polished armor she'd seen. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. Starting with why you really need a fake wife." Ava moved to lean against her kitchen counter, putting some distance between them. "And don't give me that board of directors story. I did some research this weekend. You own 60% of Caldwell Enterprises. The board can pressure you all they want, but they can't actually remove you." Liam's eyebrows rose. "You've been busy." "I'm not stupid, Liam. If I'm going to sign my life away for 6 months, I want to know what I'm really getting into." For a long moment, Liam was quiet, his fingers drumming against the table. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, less controlled, more honest. "You're right. The board can't remove me, but they can make my life very difficult. They can vote down expansion plans, block acquisitions, refuse to approve new initiatives." He ran a hand through his dark hair, messing up its perfect styling. "My grandfather built Caldwell Enterprises from nothing, but he was also a traditionalist. He believed that a man wasn't truly mature until he had a wife and family to ground him. So the clause in his will is real, but not what you think. If I'm not married by 35, my voting shares get reduced to 40%. The board gains control." Liam's jaw tightened. "Everything my grandfather built, everything I've worked for, could be dismantled by a group of old men who think quarterly profits matter more than long-term vision." Ava studied his face, seeing the genuine frustration there. "Why haven't you just found someone real? You're rich, successful, reasonably attractive." "Reasonably attractive?" Liam interrupted with a raised eyebrow. "Don't fish for compliments," Ava shot back. "You know you're gorgeous. My point is, you could probably have your pick of women in this city. Why the fake marriage route?" Liam was quiet for so long that Ava thought he wasn't going to answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Because I've tried the real thing. It didn't end well." There was pain in his voice, old and carefully buried, but unmistakable. Ava felt her defensive stance soften slightly. "What happened?" Her name was Olivia. We were together for 2 years, engaged for 6 months, I thought. He shook his head. It doesn't matter what I thought. What matters is that she decided marrying a workaholic wasn't worth the money after all. She called off the engagement 3 days before the wedding. Liam, I'm sorry. Don't be. She was right. I am a workaholic. I do put business before everything else. I'm not capable of the kind of relationship that leads to real marriage. He looked up at her, his gray eyes hard. That's why this arrangement makes sense. No emotions, no expectations beyond what's written in the contract. We both get what we need, without the messy complications of actual feelings. Ava felt something twist in her chest at his words. That's a pretty cynical way to look at life. It's a realistic way to look at life. Liam corrected. Romantic love is a luxury I can't afford. This is business, Ava. Clean, simple, mutually beneficial business. Ava moved to her tiny refrigerator and pulled out a bottle of water, needing something to do with her hands. And what if Victoria figures out it's fake? You said she has it out for your family. Victoria is a problem, but not an insurmountable one. She's bitter and vindictive, but she's not stupid. As long as we're convincing in public, she'll have to accept the situation. Liam paused. Although, there is one thing I should mention. What? She's been telling people that our marriage won't last 6 months. She's made it something of a public prediction. Ava nearly dropped her water bottle. She what? Apparently, she's been holding court at every society event this weekend, explaining to anyone who will listen that you're obviously a gold digger who trapped me with pregnancy or blackmail, and that I'll come to my senses soon enough. Pregnancy? Ava's voice rose to a squeak. Where did she get that idea? I have no clue, but it's gaining traction in certain circles. My assistant fielded 6 calls from society reporters yesterday asking for comment on your condition. Ava sank into the wobbling chair across from him, suddenly feeling exhausted. This is getting more complicated by the minute, which is why I'm here. Liam leaned forward, his expression intense. Ava, if we're going to do this, we need to do it right. Half measures won't work against someone like Victoria. We need to be completely committed to selling this relationship. What exactly does that mean? It means moving in together. Ava's head snapped up. Excuse me? Think about it. We're supposedly newlyweds who've been keeping our marriage secret. It would be bizarre if we maintained separate residences now that we're public. Liam gestured around her small apartment. And no offense, but this place isn't exactly befitting Mrs. Caldwell. I am not moving into your penthouse, Ava said firmly. I won't be some kept woman playing dress-up in your world. I'm not suggesting you become a kept woman. I'm suggesting we get a place together. Something that feels like home to both of us. Not just an extension of my office. Liam pulled out his phone and showed her a real estate listing. I've been looking at some options. This is a townhouse on the Upper East Side. 4 bedrooms. So we can each have our own space. Home office for you. Privategym, roof deck. It's furnished, but not too masculine. Ava stared at the photos on his phone. The townhouse was gorgeous, elegant but warm, with exposed brick walls and huge windows, and a kitchen that belonged in a magazine. It was the kind of place she'd dreamed of living in since she was a little girl playing house. Liam, I can't afford half the rent on a place like this. You're not paying rent. It's part of the arrangement. He pocketed his phone. Ava, if we're going to convince people that this marriage is real, we need to live like it's real. That means sharing a home, attending events together, building a believable history, building a history, couple stories. How we met, how I proposed, why we kept it secret. We need our stories to match if anyone asks. Liam's business mode was back in full force. I've already told my assistant that we met when Caldwell Enterprises hired Summit Marketing for a small project last year. Love at first sight, whirlwind romance, Vegas wedding that we kept quiet because we wanted to be sure before going public. Ava's head was spinning. You've thought of everything, haven't you? I've thought of most things. The details we can work out as we go. Liam reached across the table and took her hand, his touch sending electricity up her arm. Ava, I know this is crazy. I know it's asking a lot. But it could work. We could both get everything we want. Looking into his eyes, Ava felt herself wavering. The rational part of her brain was screaming warnings. But another part, a part that had been ignored and practical for so long, was whispering about possibilities. Financial security, career advancement, a beautiful home, and maybe, just maybe, had the chance to figure out what was behind that carefully controlled facade Liam wore like armor. If I say yes, she said slowly, when would this start? Immediately. There's a charity auction tomorrow night. The kind of event where we need to be seen together. My stylist could meet with you tomorrow afternoon, get you something appropriate to wear. And if I say no, then we announce our divorce Tuesday morning, blame irreconcilable differences, and hope the media moves on to the next scandal quickly enough that neither of us suffers permanent damage. Ava pulled her hand away from his, needing to think clearly. I need guarantees, written guarantees, such as, if this goes badly, if my reputation gets destroyed, you help me rebuild it. Job references, networking opportunities. Whatever it takes. Ava's voice grew stronger as she spoke. And if you decide to end the arrangement early, I get 6 months of severance pay. Done. Liam didn't hesitate. Anything else? Ava looked around her tiny apartment one more time. It wasn't much, but it was hers. Safe. Simple. Signing Liam's contract meant giving up that safety, stepping into a world where everything was performance and calculation. But it also meant opportunity, real opportunity, not just to advance her career, but to experience a life she'd only ever dreamed about. One more thing, she said quietly. If I develop feelings for you, and I tell you about it per the contract terms, you can't use it against me. No mockery, no making me feel stupid for being human. Something flickered across Liam's face. Surprise, maybe, or something deeper. That goes both ways. You won't develop feelings, Ava said with more confidence than she felt. You just told me you don't do emotions. No, Liam agreed quietly. I don't. But as he said it, his gaze lingered on her face in a way that made her pulse quicken. Ava stood up and walked to her coffee table, picking up the contract folder. She stared at it for a long moment, acutely aware of Liam, watching her every move. If I sign this, she said without looking at him, everything changes. Everything already changed the moment you claimed to be my wife, Liam replied. This just makes it official. Ava took a deep breath, grabbed a pen from the stack of mail on her counter, and before she could change her mind, signed her name on the dotted line. When she looked up, Liam was smiling, not his usual arrogant smirk, but something warmer and more genuine. Welcome to the family, Mrs. Caldwell. 3 weeks into their arrangement, Ava was beginning to understand why people said money couldn't buy happiness, but it could certainly rent a very convincing version of it. She stood in the master bedroom of their Upper East Side townhouse, watching her reflection in the floor-to-ceiling mirror as Lily, Liam's personal stylist, made final adjustments to her gown for tonight's museum gala. The emerald green silk hugged her curves perfectly, the color bringing out flecks of gold in her brown eyes that she'd never noticed before. You look absolutely stunning, Mrs. Caldwell, Lily said, stepping back to admire her work. Mr. Caldwell won't be able to take his eyes off you. Ava tried to ignore the flutter in her stomach at the thought. Over the past 3 weeks, she'd become disturbingly good at pretending to be in love with Liam Caldwell. Too good, perhaps. The transition to their shared life had been smoother than either of them had anticipated. The townhouse Liam had chosen was perfect, elegant but warm, with enough space for both of them to maintain their independence while creating the illusion of domestic bliss. Ava had her own office on the 2nd floor where she worked on summit marketing campaigns, while Liam had converted the 3rd floor into a home office that rivaled his corporate headquarters. But it was the small, unscripted moments that were becoming problematic. The way Liam brought her coffee every morning, prepared exactly the way she liked it without her ever having to ask, the way they'd fallen into an easy routine of sharing breakfast while reading their respective sections of the newspaper, the way he'd started asking about her day when he came home from work and actually listening to her answers. Last week, she'd caught a stomach bug and spent 2 days laid up in bed, feeling miserable and sorry for herself. Liam had surprised her by canceling his meetings to work from home, checking on her every few hours with soup, tea, and an endless supply of terrible daytime television to keep her entertained. When she'd protested that he didn't need to take care of her, he'd simply said, "What kind of husband would I be if I didn't?" The word husband had sent an unwelcome thrill through her that she'd tried very hard to ignore. Ava, Lily's voice brought her back to the present. Did you hear me? I asked if you wanted to wear the diamond earrings, or the emerald ones. Oh, sorry, the diamonds, I think, Ava said, shaking off her wandering thoughts. They'll catch the light better for photos. Lily nodded approvingly and fastened the exquisite diamond drops to Ava's ears. Each earring probably cost more than Ava's old annual salary, a fact that still made her slightly nauseous when she thought about it too long. The sound of the front door closing echoed through the townhouse, followed by Liam's voice calling her name. Ava's pulse quickened automatically, a Pavlovian response she'd developed to his presence that she tried very hard to ignore. "I'm upstairs," she called back, slipping into the Louboutin heels that still made her feel like she was playing dress-up in someone else's life. Footsteps on the hardwood stairs, measured and confident. Ava found herself holding her breath as Liam appeared in the doorway, looking devastatingly handsome in his black tuxedo. His dark hair was slightly mussed from the wind, and there was a stress line between his eyebrows that she'd learned to recognize over their weeks of cohabitation. "Rough day?" she asked, automatically moving toward him. It had become second nature. This dance of pretend intimacy they performed even when no one was watching. Muscle memory for a relationship that didn't exist. "The Patterson acquisition is hitting snags," Liam said, his hands finding her waist as she reached up to smooth his hair. "Their board is getting cold feet about the merger terms. Will you lose the deal?" Ava asked, genuinely concerned. She'd learned more about Caldwell Enterprises' business in 3 weeks than she'd ever thought she'd want to know, but Liam's passion for his work was infectious. He'd spent hours explaining the intricacies of corporate acquisitions to her, and she found herself actually interested in the strategic thinking behind his decisions. "Not if I have anything to say about it," Liam said, though his voice carried a weariness she hadn't heard before. "Their concerns aren't entirely unfounded. The market has been volatile lately, and they're worried about overextending themselves." Ava studied his face, noting the genuine frustration there. "What would losing Patterson mean for Caldwell Enterprises?" "It would set us back about 2 years on our expansion timeline," Liam admitted, "and it would give the board ammunition to question my leadership decisions." "The same board that's pressuring you to get married?" "The very same." Liam's hands lingered on her waist, his thumbs tracing small circles that made her skin tingle through the silk. "But let's not talk about work tonight. You look incredible, by the way." "Lily's work," Ava said, though she couldn't help but smile at the compliment. "Ready to charm the cultural elite into donating obscene amounts of money to the arts?" "Always." Liam's answering smile was genuine, not the calculated expression he wore for the cameras, though I have to admit, these events are significantly more bearable with you there. "Careful, Mr. Caldwell," Ava teased, straightening his bow tie unnecessarily. "Someone might think you actually enjoy my company." "Shocking thought," Liam murmured, but his eyes were warm as they met hers in the mirror. The moment stretched between them, comfortable and dangerous in equal measure. Ava was acutely aware of how close they were standing, how right it felt to be in his arms, how easy it would be to rise up on her toes and kiss him for real instead of for the cameras. These moments had been happening more frequently lately, times when the line between performance and reality blurred so completely that Ava forgot which side of it she was supposed to be on. Like 2 nights ago when they'd been watching a movie on the couch, and she'd fallen asleep against his shoulder. She'd woken up hours later to find herself covered with a blanket, Liam still sitting beside her with his laptop, working quietly so as not to disturb her sleep. Or yesterday morning, when she'd been struggling with a particularly difficult campaign pitch, and Liam had sat with her at the kitchen island, offering suggestions and encouragement, until she'd finally cracked the creative problem. The kiss he'd given her when she'd figured it out had felt like celebration, not performance. The sound of her phone buzzing broke the spell. Ava stepped out of Liam's embrace to check the message, trying to ignore the immediate sense of loss she felt at the broken contact. "Emma wants to know if we're still on for lunch tomorrow," Ava said, scrolling through her messages. "And my mom is asking again when she gets to meet my mysterious husband. She's starting to think I made you up." Ava's relationship with her best friend had become increasingly strained over the past 3 weeks. Emma knew something was off. She'd known Ava too long to be completely fooled by the sudden transformation from struggling creative director to Manhattan socialite. But the confidentiality agreement prevented Ava from telling her the truth, and the lies were eating away at their friendship. "What did you tell your mother?" Liam asked, straightening his cufflinks. "That you're very busy with work and travel, but that we'll arrange something soon." Ava set her phone aside and picked up her clutch. "She's getting suspicious, though. She keeps asking why I haven't brought you home to Kansas yet. She says it's not normal for a newlywed to keep her husband away from her family for so long." The thought of taking Liam home to Clearwater, Kansas, population 8,000, made Ava's stomach flip. Her parents still lived in the same modest farmhouse where she'd grown up. Her father still worked at the grain elevator, and her mother still taught 2nd grade at the elementary school. They were good, honest people who would see right through any pretense. And her mother would probably try to have a heart-to-heart with Ava about whether she was truly happy. "We should probably plan a trip," Liam said thoughtfully. "It would look strange if we didn't visit your family eventually." The society reporters are bound to start asking questions about why we haven't done the traditional meet the parents routine. Maybe after the holidays, Ava said vaguely, hoping something would come up to delay the inevitable. Ava, Liam said gently, are you embarrassed by where you come from? The question caught her off guard. No, of course not. I love my family. I'm proud of my roots. Then what's the problem? Ava struggled to put her feelings into words. It's just, you're going to walk into their little farmhouse wearing a suit that costs more than they make in a month. And they're going to know immediately that we don't belong in the same world. They're going to wonder what you could possibly see in their ordinary daughter from Kansas. Liam stepped closer to her, his expression serious. First of all, there's nothing ordinary about you. And second, your parents raised an incredible woman who built a successful career through talent and hard work. If they can't see how remarkable you are, then they don't deserve to know you. They love me, Ava protested. They just worry that I'm reaching too high, trying to be something I'm not. And honestly, sometimes I wonder if they're right. They're not, Liam said firmly. You belong in this world as much as anyone else, more than most people, actually, because you earned your place instead of inheriting it. The conviction in his voice made something warm unfurl in Ava's chest. It was the kind of wholehearted support she'd never expected from their business arrangement. Lily discreetly cleared her throat from the corner of the room. I hate to interrupt, but the car will be here in 10 minutes. Right, Ava said, shaking off the emotional intensity of the moment. Thank you, Lily, for everything. The stylist smiled warmly and gathered her things. It's my pleasure, Mrs. Caldwell. You two have a wonderful evening. After Lily left, Ava found herself alone with Liam in a way that felt different from their usual interactions. The air seemed charged with unspoken tension. Are you ready for this? Liam asked. Offering her his arm, Define ready, Ava said with a nervous laugh. I still feel like I'm playing dress-up half the time. The trick is to remember that most of these people are playing dress-up too, Liam said as they made their way downstairs. The only difference is that some of them have been doing it longer. The car ride to the museum was quiet, both of them lost in their own thoughts. Ava found herself studying Liam's profile in the dim light of the back seat, noting the tension in his jaw and the way his fingers drummed against his knee. He'd been increasingly stressed lately, and she wondered if it was just work pressure or if their arrangement was wearing on him, too. Liam, she said softly, are you okay? You seem different lately. He turned to look at her, his expression unreadable in the shadows. Different how? I don't know. Distracted, tired. Ava hesitated, then reached over to cover his restless hand with hers. Is this getting to be too much? The pretending? Liam's fingers still under hers. Is it getting to be too much for you? I asked you first, Ava said. Liam started, then stopped as the car pulled up to the museum's red carpet entrance. Photographers immediately began snapping pictures through the tinted windows, their flashes creating a strobe effect that made Ava's head spin. We'll talk later. Right now, it's showtime. The museum gala was a spectacular affair, with the city's wealthiest and most influential citizens gathered in the soaring atrium beneath a canopy of glittering lights. The Metropolitan Museum had been transformed for the evening with ice sculptures and floral arrangements that probably cost more than most people's cars. Ava had attended enough of these events now to recognize the major players: tech moguls, real estate heiresses, politicians, and celebrities, all mingling in their designer finery. She and Liam moved through the crowd like a well-oiled machine, their performance polished by weeks of practice. His hand never left the small of her back. She laughed at his jokes with perfect timing, and they shared the kind of intimate glances that made other couples look envious. But tonight, something felt different. The touches lingered longer. The smiles seemed more genuine, and when their eyes met, Ava felt a jolt of electricity that had nothing to do with their audience. The Caldwells. A voice boomed across the crowd. Ava turned to see Oliver Grant, a tech billionaire she'd met at their first event, approaching with his wife Sophia in tow. Oliver had made his fortune in social media platforms and had the kind of aggressive personality that filled any room he entered. You two look absolutely radiant. Marriage certainly agrees with you. Thank you, Oliver, Liam replied smoothly, his arm tightening around Ava's waist. How's the yacht charter business treating you? Can't complain, Oliver said with a booming laugh. Though I have to say, Sophia here has been dying to get the details on your whirlwind romance. She's convinced there's some grand romantic story we haven't heard yet. As the men fell into discussion about market trends and acquisition opportunities, Sophia Grant turned to Ava with the predatory smile of a socialite in gossip mode. Sophia was one of those women who had perfected the art of appearing friendly while gathering intelligence for future social warfare. "Ava, darling, I have to ask, when are you and Liam going to give us some Caldwell heirs? You've been married for months now, and everyone is simply dying to know when there might be a little announcement." Ava felt her cheeks burn. The pregnancy rumors Victoria had started were still circulating in certain circles, despite their attempts to quash them. "We're not in any rush," she said diplomatically. "We're still enjoying the honeymoon phase." Of course, Sophia said with a knowing wink. "Though, I have to say, I saw Victoria at the Hamptons last weekend, and she seemed quite convinced that there would be some kind of announcement soon. She was telling the Ashfords that she had it on good authority that you were already expecting." Ava's blood ran cold. Victoria was still actively spreading rumors, and apparently, she was getting more specific with her lies. "Victoria sees what she wants to see," Ava said carefully. "Victoria." Liam interjected smoothly, clearly having been listening to their conversation despite his discussion with Oliver. "Has always had an overactive imagination. Ava and I will share any news when we're ready." Sophia looked slightly disappointed at being shut down, but she moved on to other topics. The upcoming charity auction, plans for the winter social season, gossip about other couples in their circle. Ava smiled and nodded at appropriate intervals, but her mind was racing. If Victoria was spreading specific rumors about pregnancy, what else was she planning? As the evening progressed, Ava found herself watching Liam more closely than usual. There was something different about him tonight, a restlessness that she couldn't quite put her finger on. When they danced during the orchestra's first set, his hands seemed to linger longer than necessary. When he laughed at her, whispered comments about the other guests, his eyes stayed on her face instead of scanning the room for business opportunities. "You're staring," Liam murmured as they swayed to a romantic ballad. "Am I?" Ava asked innocently. "Maybe I'm just admiring my handsome husband." "Careful," Liam said, spinning her gracefully. "Someone might think you actually mean that." The words were teasing, but there was something serious in his tone that made Ava's heart skip. "Maybe I do." The admission slipped out before she could stop it, and she felt Liam's steps falter slightly before he recovered his rhythm. "Ava, forget I said anything," she said quickly, focusing on his shoulder rather than meeting his eyes. "It's just the atmosphere. All this romance in the air makes me sentimental." But Liam's arms tightened around her, and when she finally looked up, his gray eyes were dark with an emotion she couldn't identify. "Is that what this is?" he asked quietly. "Sentiment." Before Ava could answer, the music ended, and they were interrupted by another couple wanting to chat. The moment was lost, but the tension remained, crackling between them like a live wire. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of conversations, champagne toasts, and carefully orchestrated photo opportunities. Ava smiled until her cheeks ached and made small talk until her throat was dry. But she was acutely aware of Liam beside her, of the way his hand felt warm and solid against her back, of how he seemed to be watching her when he thought she wasn't paying attention. It was nearly midnight when they finally made their escape, citing an early morning meeting as their excuse. The ride home was even quieter than the trip there. But this time, the silence felt charged with unspoken tension. Ava kicked off her heels the moment they stepped into the townhouse foyer, sighing with relief as her feet touched the cool marble floor. She'd grown to love this house over the past few weeks. The way the morning light filtered through the living room windows, the cozy reading nook in the corner of the master bedroom, the roof deck, where she sometimes took her morning coffee while watching the city wake up. "That went well," she said, removing her earrings and setting them carefully on the console table. "Though Sophia Grant is definitely fishing for information about our supposed pregnancy." "Victoria's handiwork," Liam said grimly, loosening his bow tie with sharp, frustrated movements. "She's not going to give up easily." "Maybe we should give her something else to focus on," Ava suggested, watching as Liam shrugged out of his tuxedo jacket. "Announce some kind of business venture or charitable foundation. Something to redirect the attention." Liam stopped in the middle of removing his cufflinks and looked at her with an expression she couldn't read. "You're getting good at this." "At what?" "Thinking like we're really married. Like this is really our life." His voice was strange, almost strained. Ava felt heat creep up her neck. "Well, it is our life, isn't it? For the next few months anyway, is it?" Liam took a step closer to her, and Ava could see the conflict in his gray eyes. "Ava, I need to tell you something." Something in his tone made her stomach flutter with nervousness. "What?" "This isn't working." Ava's heart dropped to her stomach, and she felt all the color drain from her face. "The arrangement? Are you calling it off?" "No, that's not what I mean." Liam ran his hands through his hair, destroying its perfect styling and making him look younger, more vulnerable. I mean, this pretending to be indifferent to you isn't working. Not for me. Ava stared at him, her mind struggling to process his words. Liam, what are you saying? I'm saying that somewhere between the first lie and tonight, this stopped feeling like pretending. Liam's voice was rough, honest in a way she'd never heard before. I'm saying that when I hold you, when I kiss you for the cameras, when I wake up and hear you singing in the shower, it doesn't feel fake anymore. Ava's breath caught in her throat. But the contract. Screw the contract, Liam said fiercely, moving closer until he was standing directly in front of her. Ava, I think I'm falling in love with you, and I have no idea what to do about it. The words hung between them like a bridge that, once crossed, would change everything. Ava felt her heart hammering against her ribs as she stared into Liam's eyes and saw the truth there, vulnerable and terrifying and absolutely real. You don't do feelings, she said weakly, echoing his words from weeks ago. I didn't think I did, Liam replied, reaching up to cup her face in his hands. But apparently, you've changed the rules. Ava leaned into his touch, her eyes fluttering closed as she tried to process what was happening. When she opened them again, she saw her own confusion and longing reflected in his gaze. When did this happen? She whispered. I don't know, Liam admitted. Maybe it was the morning I found you dancing around the kitchen making pancakes, or the night you fell asleep reading contracts on the couch, and I carried you to bed. Maybe it was watching you handle Victoria with more grace than she deserved, or the way you listened when I told you about Olivia without judging me for being a workaholic. Liam. Or maybe, he continued, his thumbs tracing gentle circles on her cheekbones. It was the moment you looked me in the eye at that first gala and claimed to be my wife. Maybe I've been falling in love with your courage this whole time. Then Ava thought about all the small moments that had led to this. The way he brought her coffee every morning exactly how she liked it, the way he listened when she talked about her work, the way he'd held her when she'd cried over a stupid movie last week, the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't paying attention, like she was something precious and unexpected. The contract says we have to disclose if we develop feelings, Ava said softly. I'm disclosing, Liam said, his voice barely above a whisper. Are you? Ava thought about Emma's suspicions, about her mother's questions, about Victoria's rumors, and the weight of maintaining their perfect lie. But more than that, she thought about how safe she felt in Liam's arms, how he made her laugh even on her worst days, how he'd become the first person she wanted to share good news with, and the only person she wanted comfort from when things went wrong. I'm disclosing, she whispered. Liam's smile was radiant as he leaned down to kiss her. Not for the cameras this time, not for show, but because he wanted to, because she wanted him to, because somewhere in the midst of their perfect lie, they'd found something perfectly true. The kiss was different from all the others they'd shared. Deeper, more honest, full of weeks of suppressed longing and the relief of finally admitting the truth. Ava melted into him, her hands fisting in the front of his shirt as she kissed him back with everything she'd been holding inside. When they broke apart, Ava was breathless and dizzy, and absolutely certain that she was in love with the man she'd married for all the wrong reasons. So, what happens now? She asked against his lips. Now, Liam said, his forehead resting against hers, we figure out how to make this real. All of it. No more contracts, no more pretending. Just us. And Victoria can go find someone else to torment, Liam said firmly. Because I'm not letting you go, Ava Harper Caldwell. Not for her, not for the board, not for anyone, even if I'm just a small-town girl from Kansas who eats cereal for dinner and can't tell a Monet from a Manet. Especially then, Liam said, spinning her around the foyer until she laughed breathlessly. Besides, I happen to love women who eat cereal for dinner. You don't even eat cereal, Ava protested, but she was laughing as he set her down. I'm learning to adapt, Liam said solemnly. Love makes you do crazy things. Like fake marry a stranger in front of half of Manhattan? Like real marry that stranger as soon as possible, Liam corrected, pulling her close again. What do you say, Mrs. Caldwell? Ready to make this official? Ava looked around their beautiful townhouse at the life they'd built in pretense that had somehow become real, at the man who'd started as a convenient fiction and become her everything. I say yes, she whispered. But this time, I want a real proposal with a ring, and everything. Deal, Liam said, sealing the promise with another kiss that tasted like champagne and new beginnings. But as they held each other in the marble foyer of their perfect townhouse, Ava couldn't shake the feeling that their troubles with Victoria were far from over. Love might have conquered their fake marriage, but the real world was still waiting outside their door, full of challenges they'd have to face together. For now, though, they had this moment, honest and true, and theirs, and that was enough to build a future on. "I love you," Ava said against his lips, the words feeling strange and wonderful on her tongue. "I love you too," Liam replied, and for the first time since she'd known him, he looked completely at peace. Outside, New York City glittered in the darkness, full of millions of people living their lives, making their choices, falling in love. But inside their perfect townhouse, Ava and Liam Caldwell were writing their own ending, not the one they'd planned, but the one they'd discovered along the way. The perfect lie had become the perfect truth, and for the first time in either of their lives, they were exactly where they belonged. The end.